AndrewHogue.com allows you to get your fix 24/7 via our free iPhone and Android apps. Simply download from the respective stores and rock out. We finally tracked him down. The man is back in Australia for the umpteenth time, and we do welcome back Mr. Devin Townsend. G'day, welcome, Devin.
Hi, Andrew.
Always a pleasure. Now, we've got a bunch of competition winners, of course, who have purchased a ticket for the up-and-coming Shred Fest that kicks off tonight in Brisbane, and it's happening, the first one is at the Princess Theatre tonight, 7:30 start. We do have a bit of a roll call right now. We're going to go around the room. Jordan Medic from Brisbane.
Yes.
G'day, Jordan. Hello.
Hi, how are you?
Not too bad. Good to talk to you. Let's go around to Melbourne. Samuel Dale should be with us too. Samuel, are you there?
Hey, Hoagie, how you doing?
I'm doing super well. Let's go to Sydney. Steph Billamoria. I hope that's probably incorrect, but...
Yeah, man, you got it right. Hello.
All right, g'day. And we're going to head to Adelaide with David Collins.
Hello, Andrew. Hello, Devin.
Alrighty, well, let's kick it off right now. We'll go with you, Jordan, from Brisbane. And what is your first question for Mr. Townsend?
Okay, I guess, firstly, I'm interested to know how you ended up collaborating with artists such as Shay and Annika. And I was like, did you begin each respective album with them already in mind, or did you sort of seek out and find somebody that you thought might sort of resonate with the material that you'd already written?
I wish I was that intentional, man. I'm so full of shit. It hurts. It's like every step of the way, I find myself doing things. I'm like, how did this happen? I have no idea. And I think all these examples that you just asked about are that in a nutshell. Like Annika, for example, I got an unsolicited email from her singing one of my songs, and because I loathe singing in such a way, to hear somebody sing it, I was like, yeah, great, you do that. Here, I'll write a bunch of stuff. But I think also a lot of what I do musically comes from a real unconscious place, and it's just filling in the blanks. And so I'm always sort of keeping potential collaborations in mind for whichever way the music tends to go. So, yeah, I didn't plan anything, dude.
Well, let's go with you, Samuel. What question do you have for Devin?
Dev, I'm interested, throughout your career, there has been sort of a combination of the intense metal record then offset by a more kind of ambient release. That's kind of continued now with Casualties of Cool, and I'm wondering, is that a trend that's going to continue, and are there any other musical genres which you're interested in exploring?
Well, basically every record is a reaction to the one before, and that's always how it's been. For example, if you do something that is stylistically really complicated or heavy or what have you, it's more of a case of I just work so much on each release that by the time I'm through that period, the last thing that I'm interested in doing is something that's similar. So if you do something that's heavy, next one is inevitably going to be not so heavy. Or if I do something that's commercial, the next thing will be really sort of off the rails, and it just keeps moving like that. So in terms of the future and what I have in store, it's going back to the first question, it's completely unintentional the way things move, and I think a reaction to this current stage that I'm at will probably be very insular, because it's just been so public now. Like, holy crap, now everything I do is just so, a lot of people have opinions on it, so we'll see where the next step goes.
Wow, cool.
Yeah.
And for those who've tuned in, this is AndrewHogue.com, and we are chatting with Devin Townsend with a bunch of supportive competition winners who got on board to be up close and personal with Mr. Townsend. We're chatting with live here on air right now. Let's go to Sydney. Steph, what's your question for Devin?
Firstly, hello, Dev, and
how's it going, buddy?
Going well, man, going well. What was the fuck yeah moment whilst working on the Sky Blue Z2 album?
A fuck yeah or a fuck moment?
Probably a fuck yeah, this rocks moment.
there was a lot of moments where it was just fuck this more so than fuck yeah. Like the past couple of years, I added it up because that's the type of narcissistic prick that I am. That in the past 7 years, I've put out 26 records or something, including productions and box sets and all this stuff. And, I had just finished a Casualties, a cool record, which was a really important one to me that inevitably no one was going to hear, but it was important for me to do it. And then all of a sudden, after the crowd funding thing, I all of a sudden had a surplus of money, and I had never been able to convince anybody in terms of those who can finance what I do that Ziltoid is worth spending that sort of money on, because it costs fortune to make these puppets and farting creatures and all this sort of stuff. So I thought, well, now's the time for me to do this, because, again, trying to convince people that it's a worthy investment when I didn't have a surplus of cash didn't seem to make sense. So I decided to jump in and do it, and the workload for Z2 was it's just insane, and it was coming on the tail end of just insane workload after insane workload. So knowing that I couldn't phone it in and knowing that this was an opportunity for me to sort of conclude a certain period, I really had to work in ways that I had never had to work. And so rather than fuck yeah, this is awesome, there's a lot of moments where I was just like, oh my God, I just want to go. I want to go to the beach. I just feel like sulking rather than working right now. But at the end, the 60-yard line of the record, when I actually remixed it and remastered it and didn't phone it in and didn't give up, there was a moment there where I was like, oh, great. Yeah, this is great. I love it. I did it. It's not phoned in. So probably the last 5 minutes of the project.
Cool.
It's been so much for so long, and it's like, and it's cool because now all of a sudden there's people that pay attention, and and there's all this sort of, my name has become a commodity. So anytime I say my name out loud when I go down to the motor vehicles department or whatever, it sounds like I'm, joking about it. They're like, "What's your name?" I'm like, "Oh, I'm Devin Townsend." And I think to myself, it's like, oh, it's that brand. It's like Devin Townsend, the brand. It's like, it's so weird, man. But at the end of it, I love what I'm doing, and I'm so my thought on most of it just like, it's all shit. So, there. Cut me off, Andrew. Now I'm hyper aware that Andrew's going to be like, you're talking too much, buddy. Shut it down.
Microsoft, McDonald's, Devin Townsend.
That's right. Devin Townsend. Welcome. Have the Devin Townsend buffet.
Let's head to Adelaide. David, what's your question for the Devin Townsend?
The one and only. Hi, Devin. Good to talk to you. Thanks for chatting.
You too.
Yeah, so I understand you are a Def Leppard fan from the days of old, and I was wondering if you could tell us what your favourite song and favourite album was.
Well, it's not that even... Oh, sorry.
Yeah, and how much has it influenced your work now?
It's the production. I love the production because I always wanted to do orchestrated stuff, but I couldn't. You can't afford it. Going in to get an orchestra, and plus I don't know theory, right? So Def Leppard was more about the production. I was never like a Def Leppard fan necessarily, but I love the music, and I think a lot of it is tied into firsts in your life, how music reflects. And it's first girl that I was ever with was during Hysteria. So now when I hear, I get hysterical, I'm thinking, yeah, it's my first girlfriend. So, it's a lot more tied into the emotional components than it is actually Def Leppard. Like, don't shoot shotgun.
Or Townsend get excitable.
I do, absolutely. When I'm talking to Hogue, Hurricane Andrew, I call him Hurricane Andrew. That's the nickname for Andrew. But so Def Leppard for me, it was everything else sounded like shit at the time. Like I liked Shout at the Devil, and I liked First Wasp record, and all those Grim Reaper, and it sounded terrible compared to Def Leppard. So I think because it was also hand in hand with the first Sony Walkman that I got, that there's something about Hysteria that sounded so good that I was willing to overlook the not shooting of shotgun elements of it, and just the fact that it's like, wow, that's a good sounding kick drum,
Let's go to Brisbane. Jordan, what's your question for Devin?
Okay. Yes, among all the chaos that comes with being a traveling musician in your position, what do you find the most joy? Is it, the creative process and writing music or playing gigs? Is there a highlight for you?
I mean, I think as you get older, the moments of joy happen in 15-minute chunks once every month, and you catch it. You're like, oh, I feel good. I feel great. Oh, there it goes. You know what I mean? It's like, and I find that it's my I think one of the strengths that I have as a musician is I've got a peculiar level of empathy when it comes to emotional information. And I think a lot of that's just because emotionally I'm retarded. And so when I feel something, be it love or hate or joy or depression or whatever, I feel it in this really overly sort of drama queen type of way. And I think that as a result of that, every experience is just so heavy. Like I went out this morning, and the jet lag coming from North America to Australia, it scrambles your brain. I went walking around this morning, and all I could pay attention to was like the subtext of it all. It's like, well, why is this as it is? And Australia is this interesting combination of like uber elegance, and then under the surface, it's this history of something that's exactly the opposite of that. And it's the same as Canada. It's like, when I think about Canada, it's like 90% of the population is on the border, and it's just like a lot of money, and it's a lot of. But the rest of Canada, we're just a bunch of rednecks. You know what I mean? It's like you can't live in 90% of Canada, and so it's under the surface of everything that is Vancouver and Canada is this history of trailer park boys. You know what I mean? So I have a hard time not focusing on that element of life, and so. My moments of happiness and pride when it comes to my career are often just interspersed with this incredible sense of self-loathing. So I think it's, maybe the short answer is like a combination of never and 15 minutes every couple of months, right? So hooray for emotional and, social ineptitude. Congrats for our side. Human beings are messed. This whole thing is fucked. It's crazy, dude. And when you think about the amount of money, too, I'm walking around, I'm like, where's all this money come from? How can people afford to? There's a Chinese restaurant that's down the street. I'm like, how can they afford that? Where did this? I don't know. So, yeah, 15 minutes every couple of months.
True.
All right, let's head to Melbourne. Samuel, what's your question for Townsend?
Dev, I recently read on your Twitter page that you'd recorded a song with an external producer. So I was just wondering, how was that experience for you, and was it hard to relinquish control of your music? And could you see yourself doing it in the future? Could you see yourself doing more of it?
I don't know. That experience beat my ass. I got the song the other day, and I hate it in ways that I can't. I think I've made my career being oblivious to the fact that people pay attention, which is why the crowdsourcing thing was so intense. But also, I don't pay attention to what's popular and what's hip and all that, mainly because I'm not popular or hip. So it's like, it makes it easier. But I went down to L.A., which I hate, because there's this cloud of psychosis made from people that have this connection to stardom that is just so unbelievably toxic, right? And then I went with these people, and there's a formula. It's like, this is how we're going to do it, because finally you're at a point where if we make a song that the general population likes, then these 30 records worth of crap that you've put out, maybe people will buy it, and then you can sort of attract the knuckle-dragging element of the music buying public to what you do. And even from the beginning, I'm like, why do we want that? Why do I want that? It's like, so we went down and it's a structure and this theme and this format, and this is what we sing about, and this is what's hip right now. And then I had other people produce it, and it cost me $10,000, and I can't put it out. So now I'm at a position where the label wants to put it out and the management wants to put it out, and I'm like, we can't. So now I have to eat this $10,000 thing because of, I think that people don't give enough credit to the intelligence of the audience. I mean, personally, because I think there's always this assumption that everybody's like, it's like, well, these are the people that buy, and therefore they become, a target audience and fans and all this shit. And it's like, it's just all a bunch of human beings, and they're all trying to have like, at least in my opinion, like music to compound daily life. And as soon as something that they've got an emotional investment in becomes this thing that's like, well, now we're trying to turn into this bottom feeding kind of mentality, man. It's like, I'd sooner dig ditches. And I think that's how that song went for me. And now I'm still embroiled in this thing where it's like, well, who's going to pay for it? And I'm like, well, I'll fucking pay for it, because it's completely the antithesis of everything that I've done. And to put it out, and they're like, well, it's not that much different than the song Sky Blue off of the song. And I think, well, I'll tell you the difference. Is the song Sky Blue is written because that's what I wanted to write. I didn't write it thinking this is going to be a hit and it's going to fund, this, that, and the other thing. It's all what your intention is with music, in my opinion. And I think it shines through because the audience isn't stupid. It's like, it's really easy to see. But right now, I'm trying to find out, well, how am I going to pay for this song that I don't want to come out, And again, I look like a banana in the eyes of the management and the label, because I'm like, no, I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it, right? So it sucked. It was a pain in the ass.
How did somebody twist your arm to go down that route, Mr. Townsend?
It was my buddy. The guy who was the producer. I grew up with him. Now he produces Daughtry and Nickelback and Beyonce and Avril Lavigne. Dude, I grew up with the guy, and I've known him for years. But all of a sudden, he's got a Maserati and living in L.A. And I thought, fuck it. It's an experience. Why not? Who knows? And there was elements of it that I think were really valuable for me. Whether or not the song turned out to be something I can back, the whole thing allowed me to think, well, you know what? My life is good. If my goals in life are to chase that and to have a Maserati and whatever, well, then I'm doing it for the wrong reasons, man. I mean, I got a place, I got a family, I got companies that give me more guitars than I need. I mean, it's like, I'm happy, man, in the sense that a 42-year-old guy can be happy. You know what I mean? I'm happy. So it just seems like I spend way less time going to the beach than I should. And the idea of making music like that eliminates that kind of shit. Like, you'll never be calm. Social anxiety is a hell of a thing for me in general, man. And like, to put yourself in a position where all of a sudden you got people saying, well, you need to get a stylist. You need to get your teeth fixed. You need to work on the fact that, rather than go for a bike ride every day, you sit on the couch, watch Antiques Roadshow and eat potato chips. I mean, it's like, I just don't wanna. I don't care. So it's like, it was a hell of a thing, man. But hey, lesson learned. Cool. You got 10 grand so I can pay these guys?
Checks in the mail, Townsend. Let's go to
buddy.
Sydney. Steph, what's your question for Devin?
Mate, I was just wondering if Ziltoid is still playing that damn Hello Kitty guitar, or if he's moved on to something else.
No, there was a kid in the neighborhood, a little girl whose birthday it was, so we gave it to them.
That's all I needed to know.
Yeah, well, Framus made him a new one that has a fog machine in it. It's the most retarded thing ever. You don't bring it to a blues jam. Let me tell you that. Right? You pull it out of the case and it's got lasers and LEDs and a fog machine, and you're just like, oh, this? I had no idea. You guys noticed? So I had no idea. I like the idea that the fog machine randomly goes off when you're having an argument with the drummer or something. It's like, I got another fucking thing. This is how.
So do you do that to RVP quite often, do you?
What, have an argument with him?
Get the fog onto him.
Oh, drummers. Right, Andrew?
Not that bad,
Come on. I got one-way independence. I think that the way I process information is not linear. I don't think in terms of patterns. I think in terms of instinct, and that helps me in some ways. But when there's people that think in terms of patterns, you're never going to see eye to eye. And 90% of drummers think pattern-wise, from my experience. And so, you always end up just looking like you're a crazy person when you try and have an interaction, because they're just like, wow, 2 minutes ago you said this and now you're saying this. And I was like, yeah, well, that's how I think. But I think emotional intelligence, man, that's the goal. I think trying to be in any relationship, the idea of consciously and proactively trying to make yourself emotionally more amendable to other people's proclivities. Well, I get paid by the big word here. So I'm trying to get 10 grand for that fucking shit song.
Will we ever hear that shit song?
What's that?
Will we ever hear that shit song? It's got a leak,
Oh,
Townsend.
I'm sure. Oh my God, I played it. My brother-in-law the other day was just like, well, just play it for me. And I was like, I hate it. And I played it for him, and he's like, oh, it's okay. It sounds like a song, but it's not the song that's bad, and it's not the production because they're really talented. That team of people. It's what it represents to me that is just like. I don't know, man. It's like the whole thing is like, I do Casualties of Cool, and there's people that are always, we're like strapping, heavier. And I'm just like, dude, the way that I write music isn't the point. It's got nothing to do with the music. The whole thing for me is trying to become less terrified of life, and the process of that produces music that, in a sense, confronts those elements of your emotional growth that change year to year. For someone like Slayer or something, for sure, because they don't think of it the same way. They can continue to write Slayer music indefinitely because that's what they do. But for me, strapping existed at a time when that's what I needed to think about. And, when people say, well, what's going to happen with strapping now? I'm like, well, here's my answer. If anybody likes Ziltoid or Devin Townsend Project, enjoy it now because that's going to end too. You know what I mean? Like, holy crap, man. So like the idea of songs representing something separate from, the growth as a human being that I'm trying to get through. And it's not altruistic. I'm not trying to, be a saint, because I'm not. I'm fucked. And my whole goals in life are to be less fucked because I got people that rely on me,
Well, for those who've just tuned in, of course, this is the Devin Townsend live Q&A. We've got a bunch of competition winners on the line with us too, asking Townsend some great questions. Of course, Devin is in Australia now. He's kicking off his guitar clinic. First show tonight is in Brisbane at the Princess
Let's talk about
Theatre.
that for a minute.
Yeah,
guitar
let's kick
clinics.
into it.
Guitar clinic. What the hell am I supposed to do tonight?
Shred. Malmsteen
All right.
covers.
All right. Malmsteen's. I'll see the light sometime tomorrow.
Michelangelo, double neck.
Dude, man, that guy. Holy crap. Have you seen an interview with that guy?
Yeah.
It's like you're playing a Ferrari. I mean, it's like, you've seen it, right?
You want to rip people's faces off. You want to shred.
You want to shred. That's it. And I mean, that's what they do. That's wicked. But I mean, I'm sitting here now looking at all these pedals and all these amps and all this stuff that I'm trying to get set up. And, and the guys are saying to me, they're just like, well, just so you know, the last people we brought down here was Malmsteen and Satriani and Vai. And I'm just like, oh, my God, man. Like, that's not what I do. I mean, I've got like 6 things that are pretty impressive that I do with guitar. And after those are over, man, I don't know what to do. So basically it's like, I'm going to rip it up, and then I'm going to play a bunch of songs, like sing a bunch of stuff, like I'll do a bunch of singing stuff, and I will spend as many hours as I can, and we'll answer any questions, and we'll talk like a total crazy person and do it. And I want people, because it's expensive to come to this thing too. Like, holy crap, man, that's expensive. So how do you make it worth it for people? How do you make it so you're not phoning it in? It's like, the whole thing is so intense, right? So I've been working for the past couple of weeks to try and make it something that is like helpful to people. And maybe the main thing you can do to help people is not lie to them, and be like, hey, it's my new record. It's the heaviest thing I've ever done, and it's a genre-defying classic. And, it's like, fuck you. It's all bullshit.
But when's a record done? Like, when's
the record done? Why isn't they just put more in that black in the corner there? Like, Come on, Andrew, do it. Give me a Lars, buddy.
I just feel that the whole vibe of Ziltoid 2 was kind of missing at some point. Just something wasn't right about the record, but I digress. Let's continue with a question from Jordan from Brisbane. Are you there, Jordan? What's your question for Townsend?
I guess when I was a teenager, I was really into Steve Vai, and I was a massive Steve Vai fanboy. And I guess when I first heard you was actually on Sex and Religion, and I'm just wondering if you guys still keep in touch.
Oh yeah. Absolutely, yeah. Steve and I became actual friends because we had normal human arguments. I think it's you go through this whole thing with music industry and things, and there's not a lot of people in this industry that I've met that I'm like, oh, this guy is like someone who can be a friend. You know what I mean? And I think what really comes from that is having disagreements and then coming out on the other end and being like, well, even though I may not completely agree. I see your point. Let's move on. It's like a real relationship. And Steve and I have been through a ton of things, obviously, playing together and, me taking a dump in his guitar case or whatever I did when I was a kid, right? Like, so it's our relationship it's a long time that it's been evolving, and it's turned into something that is healthy and increasingly more and more healthy. I mean, we're both socially inept, so I think that definitely helps. But I mean, I was a huge fan of Steve when I was in my teens. Like when Passion and Warfare came out, I worshipped it. I loved it, And then when we first started working together, at that point, it'd been a few years since then. I was really into Godflesh. I was really into Napalm Death or whatever. So, your connection to it changed. And I was a shit when I was in the band with him, right? So the whole thing with him is it's like any relationship. It's challenging, but he's a brilliant guy. He's a very sweet person, and he's very intelligent. And, I think that anybody who is into his style of guitar has got exceptional taste for guitar players. So congratulations.
Let's go with you, Samuel, in Melbourne. What question do you have for Dev?
You've spoken at length over the years about your musical influences, and I was just wondering what kind of influenced you to have a go at puppeteering, and how has the response been from the puppeteering industry so far to Ziltoid?
Well, I think they don't care would probably be the best way to summarize it. If there's an industry for puppeteering, not only do they don't care, but I'm sure they're not even aware. My ideas for puppeteering came from the Dark Crystal when I was a kid. That's why
awesome.
Ziltoid looks like a Skeksis, and that's why Planet Smasher looks like the Fizzgig character. It's like, when I saw that movie, I was like 8. It just blew me away, man. I love the idea of making an environment for people to get into. And I think that for me, Ziltoid started as a metaphor, getting away from drugs and drinking and strapping and kids and all these things, that the changes that come into your life. It's always easier for me to objectify things in order to understand it. And I think that's why musically I function the way I do as well. It's less about saying, well, this is my next step, and more about, well, if I actualize it, then I can have some sort of understanding about it that I currently don't have. And Ziltoid was no different. And the idea of the puppet and the metaphor behind it, it wasn't intentional. It just seemed one thing led to another. And then when we had kids, maybe I started thinking about childhood more. Then the whole being 8 and Dark Crystal thing started becoming more and more of a compulsion for me. But now that I'm deeper into it, I find out a lot of things about it. I found out a lot of things about Ziltoid and my connection to music and everything as a result of this. The record itself is very confusing for people. It's confusing for me, but just by actualizing it, it allows me to move forward, I guess, and I hope somewhere in between there we can, give people something that is engaging enough that I'm able to facilitate the ability to continue, right? But no, puppeteering, no one gives a shit. Anybody who's a real puppeteer, Ziltoid looks like he's having a stroke. I don't know how to puppeteer. I didn't realize how hard it was. So we made this huge set. It took us a week to make it, and took us a year to make the puppets, and then all of a sudden I put it on. I'm like, wow, this is really hard. So if you watch these ZTV episodes, it looks like he's having a stroke, because at the same time that I'm trying to speak the lines, I'm trying to make his mouth move, and I'm not very good at it. So I'm just like, yes, blah, 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 and his mouth is just going like, ah, blah, blah, blah. You know what I mean? It's like halfway through it, it's like, well, I don't want to be a puppeteer anymore because this is really hard.
Let's go to you, Steph, in Sydney. What's your question for Townsend?
Mate, is there any new bands out there that are blowing you away at the moment?
No. No, unlike Andrew, because Andrew lives for the metal. I get it. To the death. Yeah, to the death, man. For me, I couldn't be bothered. So for me, it's like a lot of times when I hear new metal, I'm just kind of like, oh God, it's loud. We just turn that down. No, that'd be great. But I've heard some. Of course, there's my friends' bands I like. Of course, I'm always going to like Meshuggah and Gojira and And in terms of new stuff that I've heard recently, I mean, I bought the new Godflesh. I think it's cool. There's this band from the UK, someone sent me the other day, called Zirath, who are really good. And, you know, I like Periphery and all the new sort of stuff, but I never listened to it, you know? I mean, when I'm driving around, I don't want to hear metal. I want to hear something quiet. You know, I really like electronic stuff. I like for me, you know, sort of Portishead, Massive Attack sort of stuff is like, love it. You know, and it's like, in terms of metal, I'm just kind of like, oh God, you know. And it's not that I dislike it. It's just that I'm like in a different place than I was when I lived and breathed for it. You know, it's like my life is loud, my life is chaotic, and my threshold for stimulus is so much lower than it was when I was 22 that it takes a lot of energy for me to interact with people, let alone, you know, put on. I mean, I heard that, you know, I liked recently, I thought was good, was the new Carcass record. I thought that was really good. You know what I mean? Because he still sounds pissed. He really does sound pissed off. And I mean, I can respect that. But at the same time, people are always like, Dev, you got to be heavy again. I'm like, yeah, but I don't want to be. It's not that I can't be. It's just I'm not interested. And it's like, it seems to be a good portion of my job goes into convincing people that I'm not lying about that. You know, because a lot of time people are like, no, man, no, you got, it's in you, and of course it's in me. But as I get older, you learn, and you have to adapt your ways of expressing anger, or else you're going to be the guy who's a 45-year-old that every time he doesn't get the right thing in his life, he throws himself on the ground and kicks himself in a circle screaming. You know what I mean? It's like, I think if I did that now, I'd just shit myself, let alone write a record about it. So, I mean, I think it's good to be committed to what you're committed to, and if what you are committed to morphs over time, then I'll tell you what, man, I'd much rather listen to someone who's like honestly telling you where he's at in life as opposed to trying to pretend he's 23 again. I mean, I'm not, nor do I want to be. So, new bands, oh God, John Hopkins, his record Immunity I thought was great. What else I've heard recently? I really like Rapun. I still listen to Rapun like it's going out of style, right? He's got a record called Darker by Light that I listen to probably 1,000 times. You know, Old Brother Where Art Thou soundtrack I think is really cool. First couple of songs on Raising Sand with Alison Krauss and Robert Plant I think is pretty good, you know. I'm a fuddy-duddy. Andrew came and stayed with me, and we listened to Coroner for like a full week. Yeah. And I thought I was going to have a heart attack.
Dude, it was killer. Grin record.
I know. We just watched First Blood and listened to Coroner, and I was like, dude, if I could just, is there a flute that we could have play in the mute background here?
Not to forget the making of Saint Anger. Some kind of monster.
Dude.
You flush it out.
That's right, man. But I think, again, it's like the amount of people now that are just like, oh, Dev's lost, he's full of shit. Great. Just go somewhere else then, please, because it's like I love music and I love doing it for the reasons that resonate with my world. I want to be honest with people. When I'm 80, I want to be writing about what it's like to be 80. Not like 80 going, well, the only record that ever sold was when I was 25, so here's a shit version of that from an 80-year-old. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know, dude. Maybe I'm not selling myself properly here. Sorry. The next record I'm making is the heaviest thing ever. It's a genre-defying classic.
Let's go to you, David, in Adelaide. What's your question for Townsend?
Your song Kingdom. There's a couple of things I'd like to ask you about it, if I can. The lyric goes, "Stay with me, Lord." Now, there's, in the liner notes of the CD on both versions, it's just says "Stay with me" and doesn't have the word Lord. I was wondering if you can tell us, is that significant? Is that word has been left off? Should I sing it when I'm singing along?
Well, I think go
on. Yep, go ahead.
No, you first.
Okay. The other thing I wanted to know was, what did you like better about the second time you recorded it?
Okay, first thing, my connection to religion is really awkward because the moments of spiritual significance that I've had in my life have defined my trip in ways that nothing else has. And whether or not I was like tripping on mushrooms or having babies or someone dying, those moments though that are spiritually significant, you'd be a fool to not be at least humbled by the fact that the universe is beautiful and you're a part of it, whether or not you're the center of it or you're just part of an infinite mosaic or whatever. There's something there. I'm constantly humbled by nature, by the thought of it, about the complexity of it all, whether or not it's an illusion, whether or not it's a metaphor. I don't care. I'm happy to say I don't get it. And so that puts me firmly as an agnostic, because, it's not like I can say unequivocally one way or another, because I just think I'm stupid. And every day that goes by, I think I get stupider. So when I write music, typically I don't second guess it. I don't analyze it, and I don't typically refine it. So when I do something like Alien, there's music that comes out of me that's incredibly toxic, and I say things that are really hurtful. And because I was on drugs at the time, smoking weed and drinking, I didn't second guess it. And the result of that was that it put me in a position where the people that were resonating with those sort of things were also in that frame of mind, and it caused me problems. And when it comes to writing things like Kingdom, if I have the words like God or Lord or Jesus or Buddha or anything that has a religious overtone, honestly, I mean, there's certain times when I think of it, I'm like, God, I don't know if I should put that down there, because people might make an assumption that it's coming from a place of Christian or religious or whatever. But I'm not Christian and I'm not religious. But if the song wants me to say Lord, I'll say it, But I don't put it in the lyrics, because the amount of, shit you catch from affiliating yourself with anything is just, it's too much, right? Like, I have people who are just like, well, I'm an atheist, or I'm a Christian, or whatever. I had this person from Australia, strangely, send me an unsolicited package saying that because I don't accept Jesus Christ as my personal Savior, yet I have a connection to the infinite in the way that I do, not only me, but everybody that I love is going to suffer forever. And I thought to myself, holy shit, man, like what an incredibly mean-spirited statement. It's the same reason I don't like Family Guy. It's coming from a place where it's like mean. I just don't, whether or not it's funny, whether or not it's connected to anything, it's just, I don't get it, right? So that day that I got that package that was just like, you may think that the universe is beautiful and that there's something beyond you that you don't understand, but because it's not this, you're going to burn. And I was just like, so my first reaction was anger. And so I went to the gospel choir at the time, because I was working on Epicloud with that. And I told them, they're all really religious type. And I told them straight out of the gate, I'm like, look, I'm not. I believe in beauty, and I believe in, the universe and the infinite and all this stuff. And it's the only thing that's really of any significance to me, because it makes me feel connected to something that's beautiful. But I'm not religious. I don't know what to tell you. And I said, and this guy sent me this mail, and it really pissed me off. It just made me want to make horrible things, And actually the choir said something. It was great. He's like, well, one of the guys in the choir, he's a black guy, and he's gay. And he's like, and I got ousted from the church for being who I am, and it really hurt, because it's the same sort of thing. So when you think about the idea of grace, it's not the idea of like forgetting and forgiving. It's about just not letting it bring you down to the level where you feel like your only reaction is to retaliate. It's like all these thoughts, whether or not they're coming from a religious place or a racist place or a homophobic or a sexist place or whatever, the opportunity for those thoughts to be toxic to what I do creatively and musically are just omnipresent. So that's when I wrote Grace as a result of that. So there's something good that came out of it, because at the end of it, I was just like, you just got to take the high road on this shit. It's like, anybody who claims to have unequivocal knowledge of the infinite intricacies of the universe, I just think is arrogant. And I mean, if that puts me in a position, or anybody who claims that there is nothing, anybody who claims to know anything, as a human being, I just think, either you're way smarter than me or you're terrified. So, and I don't have an answer to it. So that being said, if a song needs to, while I'm saying it, the word Lord comes out, then I'll say it, whatever. You know what I mean? If the word hate comes out, if the word Satan comes out, I'll say that too. As long as my mind is clear enough that where I'm coming from on instinct is from a place of honesty, then it doesn't matter, man. It's just, I just don't know. I think the whole thing is confusing, and there it is.
Well, I reckon we'll have time for one more question each. So we'll go to you, Jordan, in Brisbane. What's your final question for Mr. Townsend?
Actually, just answered it. It's actually from a friend of mine, Sam, but it's been answered. So,
what was the question? What was the question?
I don't know. He was probably being, he was joking around, but he said wanted to know what is the true nature of the universe.
True nature of the universe is I think from a human standpoint, I think it's fear of the unknown. I think that humans are so terrified of the shadows that we take solace in, all the things that fill the void, money, sex, religion, drugs, violence, power, all that shit. You know what I mean? I was walking around Brisbane this morning, and I was just, number one, there's so many beautiful women, and I'm just like, holy crap, you got to look down at your shoes for the rest of the day here.
Crocs.
My Crocs. You saw those, right?
Yeah, dude,
apparently they're not hip, so whatever. But I think, the true nature of the universe, man, humans don't know. I'll tell you that. You can have a moment every now and then where you're connected to it, and I don't think it's entirely selfish. I think that's the one thing that I can pull from this experience that we're going through here is, as much as it would be easier to think that humans are completely self-serving, there's moments when people are dying and when there's, you're visiting people in the hospital that are terminal or whatever, where you are second to that. So that's hopeful.
Let's go with you, Samuel from Melbourne. What's your final question for Devin?
Dev, the industry's changed a lot in the 20 years that you've been in it. I was just wondering, if you were starting out in today's industry as it stands, what methods do you think you would use to attempt to get noticed, and how do you think they differ from when you first started in the industry?
I wouldn't know.
Yeah.
I wouldn't know. I mean, I'm constantly shocked that I still am able to do this, and I'm constantly shocked in the face of the fact that I'm, spending all this money trying to appease a demographic I don't care about, and then not putting it out. Good move, Townsend. But that I still get to do this. It's shocking to me, and I don't even know how I got here in the first place, let alone how you would do it now, man. Like, I have no idea. Maybe, beg. There you go. Advice from Dev. Come to the guitar clinic.
Yeah, we'll talk about those dates shortly. Let's go to you, Steph, for your final question in Sydney for Devin Townsend.
Mate, when can we expect you back here with the whole band back in Australia?
I don't know. I think, AJ is a friend of mine. Actually, when I meet up with AJ, I actually really like the guy. We've known each other for a long time and talk about a normal relationship. We had a moment there where we didn't talk to each other for a year. We were all pissed off at each other, right? And I talked to him in the UK recently, and he's always been super supportive, first tour ever and all this sort of stuff. But it's up to whether or not people want us back here. We've got a new show, and we've got all this stuff that we do. But I'm at a point right now where I'm just trying to do the best that I can, and if we're meant to be back here, we will. And I'm just terrible at selling myself. So we're going to be back next year with a brand new show. It's going to be the heaviest thing we've ever done. On the new record, it's a genre-defying classic. Heaviest thing we've ever done.
And let's go to you, David. Your final question for Devin.
Yeah, the Universal Choir. I reckon that was just a fantastic idea, and I can't wait to hear it. What do you reckon about how well did it go? Were you pleased with the results of what you got?
It was thousands of people, and I was pleased with the result. It made me cry. I think the thing that was so intense about it is because my process has been so insular for so long, and I've managed to find myself in a situation where as long as I ignored the ramifications of making music, I could continue doing it with the same intention. But then all of a sudden, when we did a crowdsource in the Universal Choir, and there's thousands of people that participated, all of a sudden it kind of threw me for a loop. I'm like, oh my God, it's not just me. Like, this is other human beings that have wealths of experience and loves and hates, and some are smarter than you and some are dumber than you, and it's just other people. And it was intense. And so putting the choir together and trying to make it sit in the track and everything was just like, it was just a moment, man, where I think a lot of confrontation of fear came into Z2. Z2, the record, is the theme of Z2 is about what it takes to make this record. You know what I mean? And there was a moment while doing the Universal Choir where it was so overwhelming that I'm thinking, this is terrifying. I can't do this. This is too much. It's the ramifications of it are too intense. But at the same time, it's the same thing with Retinal Circus. I remember doing that, going, there's a whole show. There's people with masks of your face. It's like the narcissism of it is just so paralyzing on a certain level that you have to really just get past it. And the Universal Choir, man, was a real pest, because I think you talk about fear. I think fear of love is like a huge deal, because, you know, when you think about love, you think about lust, you think about that sort of element of emotional intelligence, and you think of it as being really easy, but love is terrifying, because it involves being aware of the fact that things go away, that people die. And, you know, to get that outpouring of emotion from strangers, I was just like, holy crap, man. It's just so intense. So, but we did. We put it together, and we put it on the song. And when I hear it, I listened to it on the flight over here, and there was a certain point there where I did the 40-year-old man cry, which, if you're not familiar with, is much different than 23. Because when you're 23, you cry. It's just like, oh, my God. But when you're 40, you just go, oh, and then it's over. You know what I mean? And then he pretended it was like a cough or something, right? He was like, oh, shit, did you get that? Man, it was spicy. What did I say? Super spicy. Anyway, what's up? So, you know, on the way over, I hit it, and it was so intense, man. Like, the Universal Choir thing was so intense, but moving forward, and even now, just like how do you take the next step in your career and in life and everything, going back to the beginning of this conversation with you guys about each record just being an opportunity to objectify your emotional growth and be able to sort of move on from there. The Universal Choir was something that started as paralyzing and ended up ultimately sort of empowering, because you realize it's not only you. You know, it's not, I mean, I get to be the figurehead for this shit, but it's not just me. It's the audience too. It's the label. It's, you know, the radio. It's everybody, right? So, I don't know. Yes. Sorry, guys. Man, jet lag really does a number on... Yeah, I'll be hearing about this interview for a while. Great.
Well, again, we do thank you for your time. We want to thank, of course, you, Jordan, from Brisbane, as well as Samuel from Melbourne, Steph in Sydney, and David in Adelaide. Enjoy the clinics. Let's check out those dates really quickly. The first show is this evening in Brisbane at the Princess Theatre, kicking off at 7. Then there's Sydney tomorrow night. That's at the Paddington Town Hall. And then Melbourne on Wednesday at the St Kilda Town Hall. Adelaide at the Governor Hindmarsh, and finishing up in Perth on the 25th of October at the Hale School. Now, we do have, of course, Z2. We're going to get you, Dev, to choose your favourite track from the record and tell us why you like it.
Well, the only thing you told me about the record so far, Andrew, is like, oh, it's not extreme enough.
It's not brutal.
Extreme.
It's just not brutal enough.
All right, that's exactly it. But I tried, buddy. So the next thing I do,
tough riffs.
My next flute music escapade is going to be all about you, my friend. So it's like, eventually, I'll play brutal music again. I just don't want to sing it. I feel like I'm going to have an aneurysm. There's one that's like the size of a cocktail weenie, just ready to go. So we'll play Ziltoid Goes Home because it's brutal for Andrew, and it's not actually that brutal at all. Look at this comparative strapping stuff, and this is like grandma brutal. But I mean, hey, it's got a double kick. Hooray! I'd like to end this conversation by saying I'm on the hotel phone, and it literally smells like a homeless person's anus. Why I know what that aroma would be like without, you know, it's like, yeah. So Ziltoid Goes Home because it's not really brutal, but in my books it's as brutal as I can get right now for Andrew motherfucking Hogue.
Thank you very much, Mr. Motherfucking Townsend.
Yeah.